Rabbi Saroken.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I was up super late last night reading
Manishtana Lailaza.
People Love Dead Jews. That was what was different. It's
Is that the book talk for today?
yeah, I needed to review it.
I thought you read that already.
You know, it's funny that you said that.
Dara Horn? Is it Dara Horn?
Yeah. I had read pieces of it at different times, but reading it today is especially brutal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was it was sort of a soul crushing read right now. But I'm really excited for Purim. And I have my Hamantaschen to show.
I had mine. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know. It was like there and then it was gone. Crazy.
I know.
Hamantaschen, thanks to our sponsor, Shelly Shemmer. The Hamantaschen.
Who, by the way, is truly one of the best Hamantaschen makers.
Yes,
I will give a
great.
shout out.
We have a number of great bakers in the congregation. Shelley, Helene Lutz is a great baker.
I the same thing.
Yes, so we're very lucky, and we're often beneficiaries of
Fed
their.
and nourished.
Yes, so yeah, that's great. That's great.
You excited for Purim?
Purim coming up. Yeah. It's fun. It'll be fun. Be fun night. That's tomorrow. When is this, Jeremy? When is this, Jeremy behind the glass?
Thursday.
This is released
Thursday morning.
So
tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. So people will get it tomorrow morning, and so you should know that tomorrow when you get it, it's Purim.
Tonight. Yes.
Tonight. You'll be watching this, and tonight is Purim. So come in for it. Should be a great night. A lot of fun.
Rafi says you and Gail have a really cool costume.
We do.
I know.
He's
pressuring me. He's like, we've got to get.
We have a costume from the Incredibles. The Incredibles, because it's Disney themed and then Wicked themed, and our Hebrew school kids are involved with Spiel. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
So come and join us. All right.
Ki Tisa.
Ki Tisa. Yeah.
All right. Where should we start?
The plot thickens, as they say.
I feel like there's a lot of pieces to this one, though.
To the Parsha?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has sort of the climactic moment, of course, but I feel like there's also, the half shekel campaign and different things in here too. What's interesting to you? Or take us through sort of the arc of it, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning is kind of almost like reads to me like a tag on of the Mishkan material, the tabernacle material. Like they're still in that, but then you get the golden calf story, and all of the sort of fallout from that. It gets so fascinating. The kind of attempts by Moses and God to sort of put things back together, after they've fallen apart, like in terms of the tablets, the first set of tablets literally fallen apart, and they do come to a kind of arrangement, an agreement between the two of them.
Can we pause there and go back just for people that are maybe like first timing with us for Torah? Can we start at the beginning? We mentioned the half shekel campaign.
Yep.
And then you mentioned it's sort of a continuation of the Mishkan.
Mishkan, the tabernacle.
Yeah. Will you say, just tell a little bit more of the story of the half shekel for folks and
well, here it was a way. I think it was sort of formed. There were two purposes of it. One was a collection of money that was used to maintain really the temple in later times. It was almost like a kind of tax. And then the money would get to Jerusalem, and the priests would use that money to spruce the temple up to get it ready for Pesach. So there's that. But also it's a census type exercise. So you have, now here you're talking about 20 and up. And males, right? So you're really probably talking about trying to figure out how many men you have in the community capable to serve in the military. Is probably what it's about early on. So you find it throughout. There are a number of different times when they take a census, and it commonly does have to do with sort of military purposes. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the old idea is like you don't count Jews, and so you use all these sort of euphemistic structures for counting people, and like here the half shekel serves that purpose.
Also, I think one of the things that's interesting about the half shekel campaign, especially when you have experience or exposure to campaigns like this, is that oftentimes in campaigns there are people that give a lot and there are people that give a little, right? Even with the Mishkan, even with the Mishkan, right? People like brought according to how their hearts moved them and how they were able. Even when it comes to the temple and sacrifices, it was like a sliding scale. If you had a lot of money, you brought a big animal. If you didn't have any money, you could pick up a pigeon, right? Like there's sort of these ideas, or bring a cake. But the half shekel campaign was really different because it was saying it almost equalized everybody. Like everybody, whether they were rich or poor, had to bring that half shekel.
Right. Not more for the rich, not less for the poor. That was it.
There was something sort of neat, I think, about that. And then you come to one of my favorites, and you and I usually like the same verses of Torah. But one of the things that I really actually love when it gets to chapter 31 is we see God speaking to Moshe, and he says to Moshe, I have singled out by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur of the tribe of Judah, and endowed him with a divine spirit of skill, ability, and knowledge in every kind of craft to make designs for work in gold, silver, copper, to cut stones, etc. Moreover, I have assigned him Aholiab, son of Achisamach of the tribe of Dan, and I also gave him skills to make everything that I commanded of you. And I feel like it's sort of this strange thing. We have Bezalel and Aholiab that are going to sort of be the designated, maybe contractor, architect, designers of this. But I think one of the things that's so beautiful to me about that is, first, with a name, we sort of see things come to life, or at least like the black and white turns to color.
Right.
But also just this idea that God gives each of us like special skills or talents or things that we can contribute. And not everyone has the same ones, right? But I think sometimes that's a beautiful thing to remember, that our skills and our talents and our gifts are God-given to us, but also in those moments where you sort of feel like, I don't know what I uniquely bring, for me, it sort of makes this section makes me think that we should be grateful for what we do bring, and also like we each have them. It's just a question of finding it and revealing it.
Yeah. I remember, who knows how many years ago, that Harold Kushner, of blessed memory, gave a sermon, one of the great sermon givers of our times. And he, at the end of the sermon, he talked about a very well-known rabbinic dictum, which is Al Shlosha Devarim Ha'olam Omed, and it's Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim. And he said that
on three things the world stands.
Stands. On Torah, Avodah, which is worship, normally understand as worship, but in modern Hebrew means work, and Gemilut Chasadim is some kindness or whatever that means. And so he said, some of us, we're here celebrating a new year, and some of us come here because we access Judaism and Jewish life through our minds. Mm-hmm. That's Torah. Some of us are here because we participate with our hands, building a community. It's sometimes literally, and some of us are here because we're drawn into the emotional ideas of the tradition. It was beautiful. Right. But that's what you're talking about, that each of us has something that brings us through the door. The other thing is, I don't know if I ever told you this, but Becky and I were going to name Josh Bezalel. Actually, I wanted to name, I should correct that. I wanted to name Josh Bezalel, and Becky was like, no, that is not.
I can totally see that whole thing happening just like that.
And I remember she was like, what?
Does he know this?
Yes, Josh knows this. And and Becky's like, what would we call him? We're not going to, I would say we call him, I'd say we call him Sully. Sully.
That's actually cute.
It didn't fly, though. It didn't fly. Maybe one of my grandchildren named Bezalel one day. Who knows?
What's his Hebrew name? Yehoshua?
Yeah.
That's really funny. I was going to say it probably would have flown better than Aholiab.
Yeah, Aholiab. No, but Bezalel. And
cool.
Actually, there are in Israel, people do have that name.
It's a cool name.
Yeah, I think it's a very cool name.
I agree. So we go through this sort of section, and then we come into a section on Shabbat. And we sort of see that that's the culminating part, the laws of Shabbat, or the gift of Shabbat, I should say. Probably both of those things are true. And then when God finishes speaking with Moshe, he gives Moshe the 2 tablets. And the people see Moshe coming down from the mountain. And all of a sudden, we know we're sort of coming into trouble.
Right.
So you want to share that next scene that sort of is the Jewish people going awry.
So very famous text, it's the whole golden calf episode, very rich, in terms of possibilities for digging through it and exploring it. I mean, what was Aaron's role in the whole thing? What was Moses's role, and where does culpability lie? Moses, Aaron, God, the people, all these kinds of things. The bottom line is Moses is gone for an extended period of time. Torah tells us 40 days, 40 nights.
Mm-hmm.
And in the period of that time, Aaron's in charge, and things just kind of spiral out of control.
Yeah. And part of it, and I'm curious to sort of dig in a little bit to that, is that Moshe disappears. He goes to God. The people seem to be uneasy, perhaps fearful, perhaps impatient, or uncomfortable with this space without a leader or without a connection to God.
Right.
And so they turn to Aaron and say, basically, quick, that guy, isn't here now. Come make us a god who will go before us. Because, by the way, we don't know what happened to Moshe.
Right.
So Aaron says, take off your gold rings from your wives, your sons, your daughters, bring them to me. They do. They take off their rings. Aaron takes them and he throws them into the fire, and then a golden calf comes out. And the people exclaim, this is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron sees it, he builds an altar, and he says, tomorrow is going to be a big festival for God. And so early the next day, everyone starts to bring their food. They sit down, they eat, they drink, and then they dance, and they have a celebration. And that's when Moshe returns.
Right.
So can we sort of zoom in on that scene for a little bit?
Yeah.
What do you think happened?
Well, just piece by piece. First of all, it's always kind of caught my attention that it was the verse that you just cited. They don't say, build us a God because where's God? They say, build us a God because Moses isn't here. I mean, what's that? That's already like a very weird thing. And you have to wonder, was there some confusion maybe in the camp about who's God, what was Moses God? That seems to be an element of the story, I think.
Which is, by the way, interesting coming up, from Purim, we go into Pesach. And one of the things that we notice in Pesach is Moshe is missing from the Haggadah.
Yeah.
Partly for that reason, we don't want to think that it was Moshe or the rabbis were concerned about people giving credit to Moshe for liberating our people from enslavement and into freedom, as opposed to God.
100%. And then, there's the whole kind of role that Aaron plays in that. Is he trying to stall? I think you could read it multiple ways. Is he trying to stall? Is he actually facilitating? Is he trying to save his own life? So what's going on with Aaron there? And he's in a tight spot. And then, but the other part is why doesn't God do? What's good? God doesn't know God seems to know, because he says to Moses, things have gotten out of control. So God knows at that point. He didn't know before. Why didn't he stop? There's all of that business as well. I think it's a reflection. We were talking about this, and I guess it was, I don't remember. Maybe it was Parsha class Saturday morning, whatever. It doesn't matter. But that a central concern through the whole Torah is idolatry. through the whole Torah. There's stuff about it in Genesis, in Exodus. I mean, it's all the way through. It's a central concern of the Torahs, and this is sort of the narrative that makes it pop. Like this is something that people really struggle with. And again, back to the idea that if there was no problem with idolatry, the Torah wouldn't deal with it. There would be no reason. If no one ever killed anyone else, the Torah wouldn't say, don't kill, because you wouldn't have to say it. So the fact that they're constantly worrying about idolatry, it seems to me to mean that it was just a problem that the people continued to struggle with over a long period of time. But this is the narrative, I think, that really kind of illustrates it.
It's so interesting that that you just did that in terms of the was it you just flipped it from a challenge, or a question about Aaron's leadership and role, but leadership, I'll say, even temporary leadership, to God. And it's interesting. We started this. I was saying I just read "People Love Dead Jews," Dara Horn, and one of the things that she spoke about in the book was Elie Wiesel's book. I think it was Elie Wiesel's book. But what she was talking about was that one of the reasons that particular Holocaust survivor's testimony became so well read was that he made it a theological question, right? Where was God? But what I didn't know until I read this book, which I need to go revisit for this purpose, was that it actually didn't start out that way. It started out
what Wiesel wrote.
It started out a question about human beings and about evil and about how, so few people, I think it was 0.003 people were sort of righteous in the way that we think of doing anything to stop
what was
a
going
genocide
on.
or a Shoah. So it's an interesting question of I don't know, it made me think about, when we hold God accountable versus when we hold human beings accountable. I feel like they're not mutually exclusive.
Right.
But here, I think what's really interesting to me, just looking at it with a lens of leadership, is what Aaron does, and could he have done anything differently? He probably could have pushed back against the people and explained to them it's going to be okay.
Right.
We need to hang in there. We need to have faith. But they end up, creating this golden calf. I don't know what Aaron thought would have happened when he threw all of the gold in. I mean, it feels like in order to create something.
Well, I think here, I think here it's this is one of these stories. There's a kind of retelling of it later on in the Torah by Aaron when it's later in the Parsha, and he's explaining to Moses what happened. And I think the first time when it's happening, it says Aaron threw the things and shaped a golden calf.
Yeah, actually, it does say that.
Yeah,
it says,
and then when Moses is like, "Hey, what happened? What the heck's going on here?" And Aaron was like, "I don't know. I threw that. I threw this stuff in there, and a golden calf came out." So that says to me that he knows he was not on his best behavior. Let's put it that way.
And it's
that Aaron knows that.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's interesting also, or at least he comes to know that when Moshe challenges him or asks him what happened. But it's an interesting scene too. This moment, I feel like there's so many different parts about it, but one, they're sort of having the celebration, which feels like it sort of creates another layer onto this.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not only that they have a golden calf now, they're going to celebrate that they have this golden calf / God. And then, appears Moshe. Well, God says, hurry down. And then there's a back and forth between God, go intervene with your people. It's a question of that. And then Moshe gets down and God is super angry. And this is...
Well, so is Moses.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you think it was... It's funny. I feel like it's God. God is angry. I feel like Moshe is probably the combination of frustrated and disappointed and angry. I don't know.
I mean, I think the moment when when he shatters the tablets is just his anger, losing control. we've all done it. We're upset at something, we hit the table or whatever. It's kind of like a very exaggerated moment along those lines. That's how I've always read it. I mean, it's interesting. We're getting a sign. We get it's interesting that yes, God is obviously very upset. Moses is very upset. Moses goes into the camp, and his initial actions are very destructive. People are killed and all these things, and then God comes in and says, "Okay, we're gonna switch the whole thing up."
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, Moses says, "Oh no! Wait a second. Let's talk this through, God. Let cooler heads prevail." And there's this. It's a really fascinating
back and forth all over,
unbelievable, conversation.
And I think even between the two brothers, right? Like when Moshe says to Aaron, he says, "What did this people do to you that you've brought such great sin upon them?" But also it's sort of putting the blame on this people as opposed to Aaron, for sure, which I feel like on one hand is sort of a cool brother move.
Yeah.
I got your back.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about them. But then I also think it's interesting that Moshe sees that the people are out of control. And it says, because Aaron let them get out of control. And so then he stands up in the gates and he says, "Whoever's for God, come here." Whoever's,
right.
It's sort of a
Moses. Yeah.
But let's talk really fast, if Jeremy will give us one more minute, about what happens next.
Like he has a choice, Jeremy.
About what happens next, though, because it's actually really interesting that Aaron, after all of this, is gifted the role of religious leader who's in charge of sort of the religious lives of the Jewish people.
Yeah. Well, I think, that plays out through the rest of the Torah and through the Midrashic tradition and some of the Talmudic traditions, is this sense that Aaron was the one who could deal with the people, and Moses really could not. I mean, Moses was whatever. He's up on the mountain and he's talking to God, and that's kind of where his headspace was. And even actually, like Canner talked about in Minyan this morning, that when Moses comes back down from the mountain, he does have that veil. That's a symbol too, that I can't be fully connected to. But when is the veil not there? When he's talking to God, right? So, but Aaron's the one he's with the people. He's out in the camp. He's the the Shalom Bayit person. And peace. So I think there's something to that. What would, maybe under Moses's watch, the golden calf sin never would have happened. But then Moses can't later on kind of minister to the people's needs in the same way that Aaron can. He just doesn't have the personality for it or the ability. Mm-hmm. What was your sense of it?
I always like this because I feel like it really does show us, the Jewish tradition believes in tshuva.
Yeah.
That people can change, can grow, can feel remorse and commit to doing things differently and then begin anew. And I think that this really shows that, we see lots of moments where it would be hard to describe or define God as a forgiving God. But I think that this is one of those moments where we see that
that's nice.
People can be forgiven, which is
even for serious things. Yeah. That's nice. That's I think a nice spot to end, because Jeremy has his finger on he's going to turn the power off and the whole thing's going to go dark. It would be a bad way to end, so we'll end there. Rabbi Saroken, Chag Sameach. Everyone, come for Purim tonight. Jeremy, thank you as always. And we'll see you next time.